Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today, as I am every single week. Boom! New intro by Cozy Snap.
Oh, I like it.
Cozy, I know, hey, you like that?
And we're earlier than usual. So this is 2 for the price of 1 that they're getting over here, Alex. I like it. I do. I like the new
I know
Alex.
people are probably so confused right now. They're like, man, isn't this is day early? What's happening? Yes,
Is it
circumstances
Monday?
behold us to release it a little early here, Cozy. And you know what? It's good. We're recording early than you. Usually we record so late in the night. Like, you guys might not be able to tell, but Cozy and I, like, buddy, we are in rough shape sometimes.
Held together by a
and I'm 3
string
hours
of
ahead of
fabric.
you, man. Like, I'm falling apart sometimes.
Yeah, dude. I same here. As I speak, actually, I am. So it's fantastic. Yeah, I was playing some ranked games of Rivals yesterday, and I was like barely able to like attack the ground. Like, man, I'm held together. But dude, what is doing well? This is a terrible transition, but can we talk about Galacta? Can we talk about this card that is doing okay in Snap? And a lot of people introduced to Galacta didn't really know who she was. I heard of her before, but definitely like when the Rivals trailer came out, I was like, oh, okay. And now obviously given, you know, Rivals being the second most played game in the world at the moment, people know Galacta pretty well, buddy. What do you think of her in Snap?
First of all, she got a great announcer voice, and it almost reminds me of, like, there's been a lot of games in the past where like the announcer is such a key component of it. I don't know why, but it almost reminded me of, like, do you remember like Super Monday Night Combat?
Oh my god, I thought you almost said what I was going to think of, and I'm like, you can read my mind. Yes, for me, I know what, either you're going to get this or you're not. If you played Mario Party, the first couple, there's an announcement, there's an announcer that would go like 3, 2, 1, and it sounds like identical to Galacta, and it put me back. There is like the announcers, you know what, I'm glad that they did this overall announcing theme for that game, because it's cool. It's just, I don't know, it reminds me of like old style games.
Yeah, no, it definitely is a really nice touch. And even like I remember in Dota 2, you used to be able to like pick different announcers and stuff like that. Announcers make a huge difference to the actual immersion of the game. So we came in at 5 stars on Galacta. I'd like to know what you think. I think we nailed it, because this card is cracked, but also cracked in a way where it's like really, really, really good, but not like completely soul shattering. Like, not like they completely missed way too high, but it's definitely a little high.
They didn't miss too high, but it also is just a card that's like, oh wow, this is just better than a lot of the options out there, right? Like,
yeah,
guys, we're all getting a free Elsa this month. It's like, okay, well, that's because Galacta is just a much better, you know, card. For me, man, when I was making the video for her, it was so cool because I was just not pigeonholed into anything, because you could just play so much around her, and you don't even need to try to synergize with her. Like, she just does her thing well. The only con to her is that you have to play the card in another location, which isn't really that big of a con. Just have to think a couple steps ahead. Yeah, really solid card, man.
Yeah, playing it in the other location is a bit of a con. It definitely is. However, you plan your strategy from a macro perspective, take advantage of that. It almost reminds me of Miss Marvel in that sense. Where like Miss Marvel, you had to like kind of plan your movements a little bit. And I like that kind of macro play. Like, I like the idea of actually planning your play and not just throwing cards out there for whatever reason. Like when I play Jeff, for instance, I just throw him into the darkened location. I don't even think. I just like throw him out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
With Galacta, you definitely have to consider where you're playing your cards and stuff like that, right? In order to maximize bangers, which obviously, Brood, Abs, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we talked about it last week, and we knew they were going to be good, but they're stupid. Like, just absolutely stupid good, to the point where I'm like, man, I've had games where I've played like Galacta on 4, and then on turn 5, it's Hope Summer's Forge, right? And now you're sitting on 7 energy, and you can do like Hope the Brood, right, with both the Galacta and the Forge buff into the Absman on the other side. It's like, buddy, what? The amount of power is crazy. Yeah, it's, dude, in Surfer too, it's crushing in Surfer.
That's what I used it in. That's what I made the video on. I was playing it in different stuff, but like, just, hey, how do you not play this card? Galactic Surfer is what I called it. I mean, dude, having Gwenpool in there too as this kind of backup that builds into the power play of what these do. But you just named it. Sebastian Shaw and Brood. These two alone just feasted with Galacta. And man, it's cool. It's you know, we saw Gwenpool, which was our comparison to the card, shine in Surfer when her season came out. And this one just kind of evolved into that as well.
It's really honestly crazy to me that some of the best Surfer cards who have come out have been 4 drops. Like, think about it, right?
That's
like, Gwenpool actually elevated it quite a bit. I wasn't even the biggest believer in Gwenpool Surfer, right? Honestly, there were even Gwenpool Surfer decks that weren't running Sarah at all, right? And I was like, no, I can't do that. I got to run Sarah. And just so you guys know, the best performing versions of Galacta still run Sarah, right? However, what I will say though is that like with Galacta, it's just the power output is insane. And like, it goes to show you how just naturally impressive +3 power is as a stat line in Marvel Snap. And so like we called it before, every single time a card's come out with +3 power, it's been crazy. It's just been crazy. And Galacta is almost near that. Now, when I was actually originally testing, I did have a Surfer deck, and I think I was a card or two off of what ultimately became the top tier Surfer deck. But for me, I was also playing it in like an Agent Thena style deck, right? Mm-hmm. Where I was playing Galacta with Thena and Kitty Pryde. And honestly, it was amazing there too. Like I was doing the thing I mentioned to you, like, okay, well, I'm going to let Kitty Pryde eat the buffs, and it was crazy because like you're getting +3 from Galacta. You're also getting +3 from Thena. So just playing cards generates 6 passive power on the board. Thena goes up by 3. Galacta gives the +3. Crazy. Like it's just nuts. And I feel like that archetype as a whole, like everyone's like all in on Surfer because listen, hey, I don't blame you. It's amazing. One might just say it's one of the most enjoyable cards you can play in Marvel Snap. But also, Cozy, I think we're sleeping on the Thena variant of it a little bit because it's just so much passively generated power just because you're playing the game.
Yeah, I like the call out there, man. A question for you. We saw Surtur nerfed. We saw Agent Venom nerfed. Does Galacta enter the same field?
That's so hard to answer. I don't feel like Galacta is as bad as like Surtur was at its launch. I feel like Galacta feels more fair, maybe because it's buffing the other cards. And like, cause Surtur, you just look at it, you're like, man, look at this Surtur. It's nonsense. Look how big it's getting. Whereas Galacta's like making everyone else big. And it's like harder to pinpoint like, hey, I know it's still like, you just do math and you're like, bro, come on. But like still, I feel like Surtur was much more of like a, look at this, look, it's a problem. The same way like Red Hulk was like, look at this blob, look at this 99 blob, damn it, right? Galacta's not doing that. It's not shining the spotlight on her, be like, look at me, I'm ruining the game. You know what I mean? So I think she might dodge it for longer than expected.
Yeah, same here. I think so too. Gwenpool's a bad example, but Gwenpool did, right? So like, you know, she never dominated, but she felt good. And yeah, sometimes that Shaw in the hand was like 20 power, but like, okay, you know, that's just kind of how it worked, but it wasn't so glaringly obvious. I think that's kind of the thing. You could be good, but you can't be annoying good. Like that's like we've seen that recipe in Snap. Like if a meta deck is good, it won't get nerfed. If it's annoying good, it's gone. Like we have seen that. If there's enough ruffling the feathers, it's gone.
Galactus was exactly that. It got nerfed. It had like a 52% win rate.
Bro,
like, it's not even good.
That.
It's just people are pissed off with it, and they just had to kill it a little bit, right? But yeah. So one thing I will say as we kind of move on to our next topic of conversation is that how would you compare Gwenpool and Galacta? Like I'd be interested in your discussion about that because for me, I think Galacta smashes Gwenpool.
Yeah,
like I'm still using both, but I think Galacta's better, and it's not even in question.
Well, because it just gives you the agency. Anytime you get the direction to play what card you want the power to or where you want it, that's always going to trump just getting power given to your hand, like randomly. We've seen that. How many times have we seen that? Stegron, unplayable. Stegron moves a card to the right. Okay, a lot better. Like that just happens in Snap, and relatively, I would say, no question, Galacta better than Gwenpool.
Yeah, and from a stats perspective, as we round out the discussion here, this is ranked 70 to 100 as we're still in that first week. So our infinite stats, we don't have enough games, quite frankly. With bots included, you're looking at 56.7% win rate and 28% of meta popularity. So a lot of people got this season pass. There's no question about it. And that takes us to our next topic of conversation, who ironically is in the decks with Galacta, in the Surfer one specifically, is Luna Snow. The 3/5 Luna Snow, who on reveal adds an ice cube. Still wish it adds ice cube to the other side of the location. Luna Snow running a 55% win rate at 10% meta popularity. Once again, that is rank 70 and above, as we are in our first week. Cozy, Luna Snow, in my experience with it, I gotta be honest with you. I liked it. I don't love it. We came in a little lukewarm. You came in at one of the greatest ranges you've ever done. You said 2.5 to 4. I was like, bro, I even kind of like roasted you on a little bit. And I think probably it's going to end up in that range, surprisingly not. I found Luna Snow to be good. I liked the active, like kind of immediacy of the ramp while also not having the disadvantage of the Electro and others. However, the actual Ice Cube on their other side, far too often, they were able to play good cards because of it. I felt like usually like, hey, you're designing your deck to take advantage of it, and that's true. But man, I was getting hit with some stuff fast. I was like, man, they had the cards. They had the cards. They were able to take advantage of the extra energy. They protected the ice cube. They actually used it like they thanked me for it. You know what I mean? So that was a definite disadvantage I felt.
Yeah, but I felt like too, I think we said this, the reason I gave that range is because we knew they would have the cards. That's the flaw in Snap and new cards that come out. When you have something like Man-Thing come out, it sucks because there's Luke Cage. Now Man-Thing can breathe more. Like, people are going to build their decks around the new cards because they know what to expect, especially the people that are sweating, right? So, like, that's where it's like I want to see as time moves on from this card how it does. Like, even Anti-Venom was countered and then he's played a lot more. Like, it's tough to call something like this early. There were times where I'm like, damn, okay, well, I definitely shouldn't have played her like right then and there because my opponent did better. But, you know, how does that look in February? That's what I want to wait and see.
A great example of that, you said it right, is Anti-Venom's a good example of that. Ajax is another good example.
Yeah.
Ajax comes out, everyone just plays Luke Cage. The card's literally impossible to play for 2 weeks. A week, definitely, right? And then the card afterwards has now been a very consistent high performer because not everyone's playing Luke Cage, right? And so, like, Luna Snow's Surfer deck with Galacta is currently the highest performing iteration of her because you can get Sarah out on turn 4. Getting Sarah out on turn 4 is a massive advantage because you can literally combo things with Gwenpool easier. Like, you just dump your hand. You can almost play a strong guy deck at that point. It's legitimately crazy what you can do with Luna Snow once Sarah gets on the board on 4. However, what I will say is where I liked her the most was in High Evolutionary. I was testing this high Evo deck where I was playing Luna Snow, and it was remarkably good. It was so good. I was playing the Misty Knight. I was playing Sunspot. I was playing Nebula. I love the idea of playing, as I mentioned, you play the Nebula, they play into the Nebula's location, and then you Luna Snow that location, and then it blows up their ice cube because they've played into that spot, right? Because of the Nebula. It worked. It legit worked. And I was playing that deck, and I had a great win rate with it. I wasn't crushing it. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, 65% win rate. It wasn't that, but it was good.
Yep.
But when Bruce Banner comes out, I'm telling you right now, you heard it here first. When Bruce Banner comes out, I'm going to make one, and I'm sure that there's going to be a deck in a high evolutionary base shell that's going to be cracked. It has to be because those cards, honestly, they work so well together, Luna Snow and Bruce Banner, that those high evolutionary packages are just going to rise. They're just going to rise. And so right now, I think we're working with good decks. It's crazy to think that the Surfer decks are performing as well as they are, and they legit have been fantastic decks. But I feel like Luna Snow with Bruce Banner is going to be a made in heaven combination. And so I think that you might unlock some additional power during that week.
It's cool that some of these, rival heroes are working together, right? Like, think about also playing Rocket and Groot. You could play them in one lane and Luna in the other, and they're like, okay, do I just get rid of my ice core early, or my ice cube early, or do I play and have my power stolen by Rocket and Groot, right? Like, that's kind of cool too. Like, you have some of these cards and what you just said with Bruce that are kind of synergizing with each other. So I find it, good job flavor-wise what they've done with these season cards. But definitely interested. Luna is a character that I went from, quite frankly, like, not really caring about as a Marvel character to, like, super fascinating. I think she's really cool, and I hope she succeeds in Snap.
No, absolutely. And as I said, I don't want to use the term age like fine wine. I don't think she's quite there.
No.
But in the immediate future, if you're unsure about her, and this is the kind of disadvantage of the Spotlight Cash system, we really see the full capabilities, in my opinion, on the Bruce Banner launch. And then by that point, you're like, well, now I got to get Bruce Banner and I got to get Luna Snow if they work together. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it gets tricky for players, especially the FOMO side. Like, do you add her to the, I don't know, especially with the Spotlights being as bad as they are. We've harped on that a number of times already. And maybe it's time we harp on something else. Like the villains of Marvel Snap, Cozy. There are villains in there. There are cards that are pissing people off. And it's about high time we discuss some of them. As we're looking at Airsham here, giving the Gladiator thumbs down to himself. That's been referenced twice already on this episode. Cozy, Airsham is a great place to start because there are a lot of people that Airsham just disproportionately pisses off. It just pisses them off. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I feel like we see things like this in a lot of games. So you have like heroes and hero shooters, or you have cards like this where on one side, it's extremely fun for the casual player that doesn't play a lot of Snap. They want to come in, they want to have fun, they want to play cards that they don't have, they want to do different things, right? So you have that. And then you have people who take Snap very seriously. And a card like this is super incredibly frustrating and makes tournament play tough and all those things, right? So it's funny, you have two sides of the coin, and for definitely one of them, it's the villain, and some it's the hero, right? So it is. He's a very complex card in that nature, but I would say for the majority, he's the villain.
I would agree. And the thing about it is that there's a lot of people that, as you said, play Snap casually, which, hey, it might surprise you, is the largest segment of the audience, right? The largest segment of the audience is where Marvel Snap excels is going to be that casual mobile game side, right? And yeah, if you're listeners, you're probably amongst the hardcore, and so it pisses you off a little bit. But one thing I will say about it is that you have Cassandra Nova, right? And so Cassandra Nova is a great valve for applying pressure on Arishem. And I feel like, generally speaking, while he does tend to surprise you, I think the thing with Arishem is we're not adding enough cards to the deck. I feel like he's still getting the Shangers, he's still getting his Shadow Kings, he's getting the tech pieces where I'm like, he doesn't have it, right? There's no way, and he always does. His turn 6 is actually Shangers and Shadow King, and I'm like, what just happened, right? But to be honest with you, I think one of the major problems with Arishem and what's really pissing people off is not necessarily what he does, and he is a part of the problem, but it's what the next card, Alioth, does at 19% of the meta. Because he gets to play out on turn 5. Alioth comes down on turn 5 in Arishem decks, and Alioth is a key component of those decks, and people aren't necessarily expecting them on turn 5. Even if you know it's an Arishem player, like, does he really play it on turn 5? And next thing you know, you get wrecked, right? For the record, Arishem is at a 12% meta share right now. 12%. It's actually not crazy out of control, and this is according to Untapped stats we pulled just before recording. Alioth is 19%. And I feel like there's more hate towards Arishem right now than Alioth, although Alioth is honestly the ultimate fun stealer of Marvel Snap.
Yeah, for sure. And again, that's what's interesting. It's like the feeling of a card being good versus too good, and Alioth maybe is less like in your face. Because like, talk about when you play an Arishem player, you know by the first 10 seconds of the game, right? Like the fun has changed for some people in the first 10 seconds of the game when you got something like the Loki coming out, whatever it might be, right? Like it's more obvious, and I think that's probably why it's more in your face. But Alioth, I know for many, feel like Loki and Mobius there in the middle.
Cozy, there is a card that has way more play than Alioth and Arishem. Actually, almost double theirs, to be honest with you. And that's Shang-Chi. Now, Shang-Chi often comes up as a villain of Snap, and this is one of those cards that, like, I have to be honest with you. Sometimes when I'm streaming and I'm playing and I get Shangered, I leave the play. I'm like, I'm going to get Shang-Chi for sure, but let's send it because, you know, why wouldn't we? And I feel like the people who are in the chat and stuff are like, Shangers, I hate that card. They're angry about Shang-Chi. I think it facilitates a lot of anger in the Marvel Snap community, despite the fact that I think it's probably a very necessary release valve in Snap. And I always come back to this example where I was in a tournament. It was like a smaller tournament where we said, hey, everyone gets to ban a card. I banned Shang-Chi, and other creators were like, bro, what are you doing? You just screwed up this tournament, right? Oh, let's just have fun with it, right? And sure enough, everyone bought like the most ridiculous, like absolutely like let's go completely vertical blob style decks because they knew they were immune to Shang-Chi. And if you don't want that in Snap, you need something that holds everything in check. But at a 30% meta share, Cozy, and that's now with Fenris Wolf being in the game too, which obviously loves Shangers, is it just too much?
At this point, Shang-Chi's like taxes. You know, I hate them, obviously, but I've come to custom by it. You know, like I know they're going to be there. I know he's going to be there. And, you know, I might be contributing to it a little bit, right? Like Shang-Chi, I'm playing them, so I can't be too mad about it. I can't complain too much about it. I remember when Alioth came out, when he was at his full, like, capacity, I would see, like, clips of people playing them, streamers playing them, and then they'd tweet out like, man, I hate this card. And it's like, dude, you're funding the problem, man. You're part of it. So I feel like Shang-Chi is a villain, but I've come to terms with him.
That's fair. So basically, you were the hero for so long that you become the villain. You are the villain, Cozy. You are the problem.
Yeah, it's like Batman.
Batman's a villain now?
No, but that's the famous line.
Oh, that's from Batman? I don't know. I don't even think I said it properly.
You know,
with great quotes come great responsibility.
I was on. You might have been on this call, but I was on the Marvel Rivals developer call, and it was like a Q&A, and the first question, like they had these like official questions that came up. The first question is Batman coming to the game? I lost it of the audacity, bro. I love it. I cracked up at that. Maybe he will. That would be epic, huh?
Aren't you forgetting that a couple Halloweens ago I was dressed as Superman?
Oh, that's right. That's like
my wife got me a Marvel costume.
Broke the rules.
Everyone in the family was dressed up like a Marvel hero. My daughter was Jane Foster. Like, talk about the depth of the costumes.
What a
we had Jane Foster.
Yeah.
We had we had the Black Panther. We had and then I'm Superman, like a total clown. And anyways, whatever. I should have bought the costumes that year. Similar to Shang-Chi, Shadow King at a 26% meta share. Is Shadow King a problem or absolutely necessary?
He's a problem when he gets buffed out of nowhere, dude. I think he's probably necessary as long as cards like Thena exist, right? Like, I do think he's kind of that Shang-Chi for the lower threshold of cards, and like those two can kind of hold it. I feel like Shadow King probably has a lot more hate towards him than something like Red Guardian does. Maybe it's just like the cost assignment, but he does something obviously pretty impactful too. But yeah, they're probably both in the same, relative range.
You know what, though? Here's what's interesting. So, as I said, Shang-Chi's a 30% meta share. Shadow King's 26% meta share. I feel like Shang-Chi gets infinitely more hate. Way more hate. I don't think Shadow King gets nearly any hate. Like, almost none, to be honest. Like, you get Shadow King, you're like, damn, they Shadow Kinged me. Okay. 26% of the meta, right? Shang-Chi's 4% more, and people, like, delete the card, right? It's kind of crazy how that works sometimes. Like, I think it's the perception of things. Like, Surtur, for instance, at 13% of the meta, I feel like this has come way down. Is Surtur a villain still since his nerf?
He's definitely got way down than what he was, right? Like, I think there's bigger beasts to fry kind of thing. I think there's a couple people that may not like him, but and that's what's so fascinating about Snap, man. Just a PowerPoint can change something that, in your face dramatically. And it's about staying under a certain radar. Like, do you remember how long Jeff, and probably up in like forever, Jeff was never like, man, I hate Jeff. Like, what a villain.
Yeah.
He just I mean, come on. It's Jeff, the cuteness. But B, people just didn't like, oh, they can move, they can play anyway. It's fine, But that one thing was winning that person so many games,
Yeah. And I guess the last two we'll mention here, Gore Galacta. Now, they're obviously brand new. Do you think that Gore or Galacta end up on the naughty list for gamers?
I think Gore does, Galacta doesn't. I think Gore eventually, as he continues to age, people will be upset about it, but has he crossed that yet? At least not for me.
He's so good with Mystique. Like, Mystique, an actual material buff on playing Gore.
It's crazy.
Wild. Yeah. It is crazy. It's totally crazy. So you're thinking Galacta probably just keeps going, keeps trucking along as a super good card?
I think so. Yeah, I want to see what happens when the season concludes, but I think it might be fine. I'm curious on what like Doom brings to the game and what Rocket does, but I think for now, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. So Gore, possible new villain of Snap, as that takes us to our Snapchat mailbag, Cozy. Got a couple questions here. The first one comes from GBeat. Every week I see Ajax, and every week I get mad that he hadn't been added to the Spotlight cache since he came out. It's been 6 months. Let me see him again. It's a good comment because, like, there are some cards I think a lot of people, with hindsight, are like, man, Ajax did really age well. Maybe Anti-Venom's going to age particularly well. Cards that on the release don't necessarily take off. And then, Wiccan is another good example of that. There's a lot of cards we're discussing. So I can kind of feel that from people's perspective. Let's start bringing back cards on a more regular basis to the Spotlight caches once we have that hindsight, right?
Yeah, man. Q1, I'm so interested to see what cards they bring down. Like, man, I really hope they evaluate, like, more of the impact cards rather than, does it
PCs?
suck? Yeah, does it suck or not? Like, what cards allow people to play new styles of decks and things like that. But, hey, by the way, I want to bring this up. It was really cool to see really positive feedback on our negative feedback. I think that
it was nice.
For a change, it's like, wow. I think we get plenty of we had plenty of defenders that are like, yeah, the narrative that we don't speak up is been dead in the water for like a year now. But it was cool to see people who had the opposite opinion of that be able to see that we care about this game, we love this game. Spoiler, you guys are gonna be shocked at this. I've heard from nobody since we did that. Like, not one person from the secondary side. Maybe they see I'm laying in bed with another game and they're mad. I don't know. But yes, nothing has come from it. But we have seen great response, to this entire channel. Or to that.
Yeah, it was heartwarming, and I can echo the fact that I've heard nothing, but that should surprise absolutely nobody. But what I will say, it was nice to see that people were at least receptive to the idea of having that type of criticism occurring, because, like, listen, the only reason why you care and the only reason why we care is because we love the game. You know what I mean? And that actually kind of comes into our next question from Robert Simpson. This is kind of an interesting approach, and it was regarding that harsh criticism on the monetization and the card acquisition, and it reads, something that's always stuck in my mind was one of my coaches telling me, don't worry, if I'm yelling at you, it's because I still care and I think you can do better. Worry if I stop yelling, because that means I've given up on you. Alex and Cozy and a lot of fans of this game aren't even yelling anymore.
Yeah, that was really good. I saw that one. That was a chef's kiss quote and something I actually like live by a lot. Yeah, it is. I think that's what's the most concerning thing, and it's stated like there's nothing that will be done in December to change anything, and that's why January is so important.
Yeah, there's no question about it, and yeah, this rang true for me a lot. Like I mean, you and I played football for 4 years in high school. I know you played football as well, and so you know the coach's mentality is it's something that I think resonates with a lot of people out there. And so yeah, very well put, Robert. Appreciate that comment a lot. The next one comes from Ricardo. And this is some tips for some feedback for Second Dinner with regards to what could possibly help the card acquisition. This was heavily upvoted as well. Ricardo had said there's a couple things you can change to help. 1, make Series 5 cards drop to Series 4 on a real schedule. 2, make Spotlight caches only have Series 5 cards. 3, make the random card in the Spotlight cache only a card you do not have, either Series 4 or 5. And 4, let players acquire Series 4 or lower cards from regular caches on the track, and with a real rare possibility of a Series 5. Now, Ricardo, I absolutely agree with these, but this is one of those things where I'm like, this is all great, but I don't know if we ever get quite this far.
Yeah, I mean, there's realistic expectations, and again, like, I just don't know how serious the Snap team took this month and last month, and so that's why like January is a big one. I need to see what their response is first, and then we can kind of start seeing what is realistic, you know.
Yeah, and this is the kind of game though, like it's very hard for them to go into maintenance mode. Like you think about the art, how much art work goes into things, the art process, the new card every single week and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of development time here. And so like we want them to make active changes to make this game better. And we've said it a million times, like even us, our time's being pulled away from other stuff. You think people watching and listening aren't the same? Everyone's got, Path of Exile came out actually this past week had like 4 massive launches,
releases, yeah.
on the same days, right? So there's a lot of competition out there, and it's about time you pull up your socks and start competing, damn it. And the last question of the day comes from Lord, and it reads, it's hard when the most fun I've had this month was donating bubs.
That's a good person right there, man. That's a good person. And you know what, guys? You know who else is a good person is Alex Coccia. I want you guys, if you're listening, if you're watching, and for whatever reason, if you haven't just like taken 5 seconds to subscribe, this man right here is 1,000 subs from his 100,000 plaque, and he's working on Rivals. He's working on this channel, but like, let's get the man there, guys. Just it's 1K away. Let's get him there. Let's get YouTube to send him something. And listen, if I got to make 1,000 friggin' YouTube accounts, I don't think that's possible. I think they'd flag down my house. But I'll do it, man. But guys, if you've been listening, if you've been watching his content for a long time, like a big way to pay that forward, especially this close, is to subscribe. So I encourage you guys to do that, man. Unsubscribe from mine if you need to, and subscribe to his. Do whatever you need to do, guys. But anyway, I love you, buddy.
That actually means a lot to me. Almost very, very close to a lifelong goal. And coming from you, Cozy, that legit means the absolute world to me. And as I said, the greatest blessing I have is getting to do this every week with you and with you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you on that next one.